everybody. Welcome to MaRicast. My name is Rich.
Matthew.
Yes, and this channel, we're going to be talking about random stuff. You know, we've been friends for quite some time.
Just talking about stuff we love, you know. Movies, anime, video games.
Yeah.
Lego blocks.
Yeah.
Color of the month, whatever it is, we're talking about it here.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys enjoy that content because hopefully it's funny and you guys come back. But today's episode, we're going to be doing something that I don't think in the 12 years that we've been friends, 12 plus at this point.
Almost 30. We've known each other since high school.
Yeah.
Like, he knew me from my early days when I was wearing, like, John Claus and Hawaiian shirts, which we'll go into at another date.
Yeah, that's definitely for another episode because that needs a whole video of itself as a topic. But today we're doing something exciting that I actually don't know about, Matt, would be our top 5 video game lists. And I want to talk, before we go into it, before we dive into the actual top 5 list, how difficult did you feel like this was to like narrow down?
It was next to impossible for me. There's so many games that could have gone on that list, honestly.
100% agree with you. And I think like just even on the drive over here just to like record, I was thinking we should have maybe before we hit our number 1, we do like an honorable mention. Maybe like 3 or 4 games that, we don't have to dive into them, but we can just say these deserve some type of mentioning because it's hard. This is difficult. I honestly was like contemplating 2 games specifically back and forth where they should go. So, we're going to start, I think. We want to get into it. I mean...
Yeah, let's start talking. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Honor's yours, man. I want to know what your number 5 is.
Okay, number 5 is a game you definitely know. Some of my choices are kind of on the obscure side, but this one is one I'm sure he's more than familiar with. It's called Team Fortress 2, an online class-based multiplayer shooter. The reason this game's so important to me, I mean, it's great based on like graphics and not really story. There's no story involved, but gameplay. Yeah, that's all fine. What is important to me is like the specific place in life where I was when I played this game all the time.
True.
Back in high school, we were both on the high school football team, and every Tuesday was the most grueling day of practice. I would skip, go home, and play Team Fortress 2. So it's Team Fortress Tuesdays.
And then the coach would always be like, Matt is not here today. He's not at practice. Something about being sick or church, and a random excuse that he would give the coach. But meanwhile, I was the only player on the team that knew. This dude was back home playing Team Fortress 2 while all of us were slaving away. So, I mean, your list, number 5, okay, that's a good start. I think something that I noticed when I was picking like a game was a lot of the games that I'm listing were like emotionally connected to, right? You had like a moment in time that you were playing it, and I wanted to have some of those games on the list, but then I also wanted to like have games that were just actually really good games that deserved to be on there because they were good games.
Right.
So because you could think about it, like if you have like, we both have brothers and stuff like that, so we've played games with, our siblings, and you can have that emotional connection to a game just because of the siblings. Right. But it would be like terrible. Trash, but... Yeah. Team Fortress 2. All right, that's your number 5?
That's my number 5. And that's, just so you guys know, that's a good point when we're talking about top 5 and emotional. If I went off emotion alone, my entire top 5 would have been Sega Genesis games. Yeah. Because that was my first system. And my next system after that was the GameCube. So there was a long period of time where that's the only thing I owned.
Yeah, and see, I was, I guess, lucky enough to have... an older brother who loved gaming too, so I had a variety of all the systems. We had PlayStation, we had Sega, we had Nintendo, we had Xbox. So my list ranges from consoles, where Matt's would have probably limited it to just one generation of console. But I'm gonna jump into my number 5, man. And I don't know how many of you people know this game, and you probably will be surprised, but my number 5 that I had to add was the Jak and Daxter trilogy.
If you don't know what Jak and Daxter is...
I mean, honestly, there's some people that never played like this type, like that genre of video games. There's a lot of people that play shooters only. They play like sports games only. But for me, when this game came out, so I played it on the PlayStation 2, right? Because that's the original release on the PlayStation 2, first one. I remember playing that game and legitimately wanting the desire, because I think that was the first game I ever played where it tracked your percentage of how far into the game you've like beaten it, you know. So if you were only 12% in the game, you would know. So I remember the first time I played it, I had like a 70% completion, and I just was so disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
Because I was like, no, I'm not doing this. You know, I'm going to commit and get 100% on this game. So I put hours upon hours of gameplay onto it, and I got 100%. And then it took a while. A couple years later, the second game came out. Voice acting in it. Jak talked. Spoiler alert. But I mean, it's like God knows how many years ago now, so I don't know if it's a spoiler. But anyways,
right.
That to me, that whole trilogy, ending with Jak 3, I'm not counting in the racing game because that's not even anything in my mind.
Yeah, that's a spin-off. You can't count the racing games.
Exactly. So that trilogy to me, I'd say, would be the most iconic moment of me realizing that I'm a completionist when it comes to video games.
Yeah.
I think that's what set it off for me. So that's why I put it on the list.
That's funny because that's like the same era of video games that gave me a sense of dread. When I saw that number, I'm like, no.
There's collectible things. I hate having to do this.
I hate any game where I need to collect things. Like, I don't know if games like Banjo-Kazooie will be on his list, but I cannot stand games like that. Don't make me collect things. It drives me nuts.
Gosh. All right. Well, that's my number 5. That's a good start.
Yeah.
You know, that's some heavy hitters. You know, Team Fortress 2, great game. Everybody kind of knows what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Jak and Daxter, which I feel like everybody should also know what that is.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into number 4.
Number 4. This is also not going to be an obscure pick if you know anything about video games. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Sega Genesis. Oh. That game was perfection when it came to platforming. And beyond that, the feelings I had, that was my very first Sega Genesis game. And I would play it out. Like, I played my Sega Genesis controller till, like, the handles were already rounded, but till they got even rounder.
It's like you pretty much like had your hands imprinted onto the controller of how long you played it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and the first time when I finally got to end and beat it, it was just amazing. And more than just the game and designs, the music on those games is absolutely iconic.
Yeah, it honestly felt like, you know, those type of games, especially with Sonic too, like, I think the investment was we need to make the music lit and hype.
Yes.
And every stage, as a kid, you were just like, and then it allowed for, you know, like replayability, because you were just, I don't mind playing this level over again or this world over again because I love the song. I love the music in it. So I think games like that really capture both music and gameplay, because Sonic, honestly, in my opinion, really had amazing gameplay. And in my opinion, I don't think a game has ever matched that type of genre like Sonic has, in my opinion.
No, it's its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good pick, honestly. You know, I'm actually surprised because I thought that you would have put that game higher. So now I'm even more curious to know what he has higher up, because this dude is like, I mean, he's wearing a blue shirt. It's not Sonic related, but he honestly is a Sonic fanatic.
Let's take a time out, because Sonic fanatics on the internet have a certain mystique about them. I'm not into it like that. I think they're great platforming games.
Not that. Not that route at all. We're not going into that route. I'm talking about the game in general. Yeah. The game, all right? Yes. People playing the game, all right? He plays it like crazy, and he knows a lot about the genre of the game and the story and stuff, and just Sonic in general. So his knowledge on the game is what I mean when I talk about that. But yeah.
I need to point that out. It's very important.
Yeah, I don't want some internet searches going wrong here. But let's jump to my number 4 then.
Let's hit it.
My number 4 is, surprisingly enough, World of Warcraft.
Okay.
I had to add it. So I've been playing World of Warcraft since freshman year of high school. So pretty much from my 8th grade going into freshman year, I played WoW. And from vanilla all the way till BFA, where it's up to now, it's been consistent. You know, there's moments where I left the game, but I always played the expansion that came out with it. And honestly, that game to me was the gateway into like PC gaming. I never played PC games before then. I always played consoles. Like I said, I had pretty much almost every console at the time. And a good friend of mine, you know, I went over his house. He had his own computer. And he was like, have you ever played this game? Wow. I was like, no idea what it was. Shows me it. Shows the customization. Because I think that was the first time like I ever played a game that allowed you to create a character and change his look and, you know, have these different classes and stuff like that, and just be able to explore this world that you've never explored before. Like, obviously, if I played role-playing games, but none of them really had that customization like WoW did. And back then, especially. So, World of Warcraft, MMO, number 4 for me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a good pick. I was really tempted to put it on my own list. I chose not to for a few reasons. When World of Warcraft first came out, don't hate me for this, I thought it was some nerdy stuff. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to play it.
That's a fair point.
Like, it just seemed a little bit too nerdy for my taste.
It's a fair point. Yeah. It's a fair point. No, honestly, the clientele, the other gamers out there that were televised, because there's, you know, people that probably were classic gamers of that game and nobody ever would know, but the televised people, you'd be like, I don't really want to associate myself with them.
Exactly. Like I can most clearly think of, when I thought of World of Warcraft, I would think of the South Park episode of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's a clear, like, picture vision of the people that everybody expects plays that game. And that's the sad part, because it's such a good game. Like, if other people played it, that, you know, that you like fantasy stuff like that, you would find it so enjoyable, but then you'd be like, I don't really want to associate myself with the people that play it. My third pick was actually, this one was tough for me to put on here, simply because there was another game that I had the same type of emotional connection and emotional experience playing it, and, you know, they were pretty much side by side. My number 3 pick is Final Fantasy X. Honestly, it is probably one of the most perfectly rounded games I've ever played. Not only was the story incredible, the music behind it incredible, you know, the role-playing part of it, obviously you really got to feel like you were Titus, you know, the main character, and just the overall level progression, how you know, level up and make your character stronger, and forming, you know, you have your parties and everything like that. That game to me, simply from that fact, was amazing. But the story, I mean, I think that was honestly the first game, one of the first few games that made me cry. I had such an emotional connection to the character, and knowing how the end of the game was, and not knowing that there would be a continuation, because nobody really knew, you thought that was it. And to me, number 3, simply because of that. And like I said, I wanted to limit the amount of emotional impact games, but I thought I need to throw one out there because that one really captured that.
Right. And in all honesty, I've never actually played a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
So
not fair enough. not everybody.
It just never called to me.
You're like, yeah, you know, Rich, yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
Like, I appreciate your emotional connection. In fairness, my number 3, I can guarantee you've never played or even heard of in your life. So it's fine. It's just Final Fantasy, the whole JRPG thing just never cried out to me. I mean, other than the Pokemon games, which didn't make my top list, I don't know if you can even consider those JRPGs.
I don't think so. I feel like that's like more of a strategy role-playing game than like a...
Somehow I feel like this conversation is a mistake.
Yeah, completely wrong.
Someone's
How about you correct us in the
Yeah,
comments, because I have no idea what Pokemon falls under.
Don't eviscerate us. Just
what
let us
genre
know.
of gaming does it fall under? As a matter of fact, since we're talking about comments, you know, we'd appreciate if you guys like it. You know, like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more talks like this, and leave your comments. Like, leave your top 5 lists, because I would love to see what other people's are. I mean, I asked other friends what their lists were, and it was really hard for them too. So I want to challenge you guys to actually sit down and think. If you're a gamer, obviously, you know, sit down and think, what is your top 5 game list, and let us know.
All right.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 Adam, Ancient Domains of Mysteries.
Never heard of it.
So here, I am going to sound extremely hypocritical for making fun of World of Warcraft for being nerdy. So back in the day, something that really, in my early gaming career, just persisted was having very low technology versions of video games. Ancient Domains of Mystery was a computer game that was probably the lowest graphics game you could probably play. Here's a map, just so you can see this.
Yeah, we'll add this.
We'll put it on the screen.
Video, yep.
This is a town.
I don't even know what's happening in here.
The entire thing
I just see green dots and an empty voided space.
No, that's a lake.
That's a lake?
That's a lake.
I thought they just forgot to fill it.
These are buildings.
So this is this is the game.
This is the game.
This is a screenshot of the game.
Of the game.
So this isn't like your map. This is literally the game.
This is literally the game. You would move your character through this, like this little P, that's a paladin. And if you chose a paladin class, you would move throughout the world like that. And it's basically, I didn't know what it was, but it's kind of like a computer-made Dungeons and Dragons game. Because you need to rely a lot on being able to read text, because the graphics, as you'll see in the screenshot we showed you, are not there. It's literally just letters on the screen.
So was there text?
There's text.
Like eligible text, like you can read.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So if not text,
not like just random text.
So for example, if you see a G in the wild, it's probably a goblin, and if you hit the G, it'll just roll down the end of the screen. You swung at goblin for 15 points of damage.
Okay.
So sort of like an early version of. I don't know. I don't really know what's an early version of, because
I can't even tell you what the heck like this game would fall under.
But this game is so important to me. I would spend hours on it. It's called a roguelike. So the original game Rogue that was like this. The reason it's a roguelike is because you only have one life in a randomly made world. So if you die, you die. That's it. That's what happens in a roguelike. So in this game, just like if we played Dungeons and Dragons, I have one life. If I die, I need to start from square one, make a brand new character, re-roll it.
And you had the patience to do that.
I mean, when you're a kid, what else do you have to do?
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. I just, personally, I've never heard of this game. B, I have no idea what you're showing me.
I'm telling you.
I legitimately, when you loaded this up, I was like, what is this background? Like, I thought, okay, maybe it's just a map to the game. And then, like, you know, unmap and you're in the game.
No.
But this just looks like it's just blocks, and you have no, I can't tell you. I feel like I wouldn't be able to track what's happening.
You would learn. I'm telling you, it's extremely addictive. That's why I made my top 3, because I spent hours and hours in this game. Right. Never beat it once. That's how hard it is.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, that's... Alright, so I can't believe... Alright, good. You know what? That's a good pick, Matt. Mm-hmm. It's a very good pick, yeah.
Alright, so we're moving up to the top 2. Before we hit up the top 2, do you want to hit honorable mentions, or do you want to save that for top 1?
No, let's save that for top 1. Okay. Because I think, 2 is going to be, in my opinion, I think 2 is going to set, the boys from the men. Is that the right word? Is that the analogy?
I think it's the men from the boys.
Men from the
boys from the men would be the opposite.
So it's going to set the bar. So I think, 3 and down really gives a range of gaming, because never heard of that before, right? But number 2 is going to set, like, we're in this game. We're in the top 2 right now. So yeah, let me hit with number 2, because... this was actually, man, this was tough. This was tough to pick between 2 games. And I think the reason I'm going to pick the one that I picked was simply because, I had family that watched me play this game. It's Super Mario World. That game to me was like, not only did, I'm talking my cousins, I'm talking, we had like, because there was only one TV.
Right.
20 people in a room just watching me play Super Mario World.
Yeah.
And going from World 1-1 to the end, which I think is 8, 4, 8, or something like that. Making it to the very end, beating Bowser, saving the princess, and just you have Yoshi in that game, and all this crazy stuff. And to me, that was just like monumental gaming for me. was Super Mario World. So that's my number 2, Super Mario World.
That's a good pick, and it sounds like the pick is more than just gameplay. You must have felt like a real hero playing this game in front of your family.
Exactly.
You could take the role of Mario as your family roots you on.
Yeah,
like at that age, you're just in it at a match.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I want to say maybe I was 8 years old around there, and you have all my cousins that are younger than me. My little brother's obviously there. My uncle, like you had, and my grandpa too. You know, rest his soul. But you had family because there was, like I said, only one television and. Everybody, you know, it was kind of like a small community. Everybody would just come to where that TV was to relax and unwind. And when I was playing, people would just sit down and watch. And I think that is what made it into my number 2. The other game, obviously, I'll mention in honorable mentions, but I had to remove it because I didn't have that experience with that game there. And I think it holds value, and that's why it's my number 2.
All right, my number 2, it's a little bit more recent than this. It is Bioshock, the original.
Good game.
That one.
Good game.
Beyond the atmosphere, beyond the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay is just okay. It did bring some new and exciting things to the genre of FPS, which, by the way, aren't usually in my favorite games around.
Yeah, not really, Me either.
Honestly, the story of this one and the entire setting of the game was just beyond mind-blowing to me. When you start the game, if you don't know, you basically start in a crash plane and you need to swim to a lighthouse where you then take a bathysphere down into the city of Rapture. The first time I saw the city of Rapture, I'm going to tell you, I had such an emotional reaction. It was just so beautifully rendered, so amazing, so atmospheric. It made me cry.
Yeah. Honestly, it was honestly that game. And I think this is one thing that we do share. I didn't put it in my top 5,
right?
But it's definitely an honorable mention for me. That game was so groundbreaking in my eyes of FPSs. Because just like Matt, I really, a lot of my friends played FPSs. The Halos, Call of Duty, and things like that. But even GoldenEye for N64, like I had it, but I never really enjoyed it. Like other people that love FPSs.
Right.
But this game, it didn't feel like an FPS. It felt like you were playing like this. Because Rapture felt like such a mythical place, but it also felt very real and alive.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that was the first game that captured that. Like, it brought you to a mythical place, but it also made it real.
Right.
Where like you can be like, something like this could exist. As crazy as it is. Obviously not the plasmid stuff, that's the fantasy part of it, but the underground world, this underground society, like, could exist, especially with a bright leader, like,
exactly.
Was it Andrew Ryan?
Andrew Ryan.
Yeah.
And speaking of Andrew Ryan, spoiler alert, I won't tell you exactly what happens in case you've never played the game, but there is an amazing scene involving a golf club that honestly blew my mind and just turned my world upside down.
Yes. If you have not played that game, like, from both of our standpoint, we 100% recommend it. It's probably one of the very few games that we both would agree on telling somebody you should play it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gosh, all right, so that's number 2. See, I told you number 2 was going to bring this up a level because you're going to have either heavy emotional side of it or just like a gaming experience that just blew your mind. So, honorable mentions, what do you got?
All right, so honorable mentions. These are basically all Sega Genesis games. These were going to populate my top 5, so I came to the conclusion that it looked pretty ridiculous. Streets of Rage 2. Probably not one you've ever played.
I don't think I've ever played that.
Okay.
No.
It is... Streets of Rage is a trilogy. There's Streets of Rage 1, 2, 3, and 4 just actually came out for the Switch, and it's amazing. It's a return to character. But it is like a beat 'em up in the style of Final Fight.
Okay, I played Final Fight. So so it's that same type of game. Where is it like you're in one screen, you clear the enemies that are coming in.
Then the big arrow goes telling you to go forward.
Okay, cool.
So there's 2 things about that game. I think the setting's really cool. The gameplay is pretty amazing for being a beat 'em up. I know it's not the best there ever was, but what is the best there ever was, and you can't at me at this, it had the hands down best music of a video game.
Okay.
Of a beat 'em up.
Of a beat 'em up. Yes, I was gonna say. Of a video game? Wow. Okay.
Not ever. But just super iconic, from the boss battles to the first stage to the final boss. Like, they have it down pat. It's amazing.
Okay.
Down pat or down packed?
I think it's down pat.
I'm really overthinking things because now I'm just imagining people being like, dummy, it's down packed.
All right, but you got. I'll hit you with another one. My other honorable mention, since I did hit my number 2, I'm sure everybody's asking, well, what was the other game? It's Mario 64. I mean, that. I don't even have to explain why that game was amazing. I feel like if you've never played that game, you need to either emulate it or you need to go and download it on like the Switch. I'm sure. I don't know if the Switch has N64.
I don't think
what's it called? Virtual consoles yet. But I know the Wii U did and the Wii. So if you have that for whatever reason, definitely play that game. I'm sure everybody probably played that. But.
So I love Super Mario 64, but the game also unnerves me.
Oh yeah, because that is a master collection of items and.
No. That's not my issue. The issue is the castle. The
castle?
The castle. So the castle is so, in the game in general, this castle is so sparsely populated by other beings, it's sort of almost like a horror game. Well, what happened to the inhabitants?
But they tell you that.
I didn't pay attention.
The toads, they're in hiding. You know, they're invisible because some of them are like so. You know,
how scary is that,
dude? Well, they're hiding, and then some of them were transformed, I think, to some of the monsters and the blocks, like the original Super Mario games. And they're terrified of Bowser, so it's possible that they all scurried and ran away. I mean, let me tell you something. Peach gets captured by Bowser so much. It's like there needs to be a meeting between Peach and like the Toads, and like have these dudes like eat more mushrooms or something, because there's if that's her royal guard, there's a problem.
Yeah. So here's my hot take: Super Mario 64, one of the best horror games there's ever been.
You almost made me spit out my nice lukewarm water here.
All right, so my number 1 game of all time, I doubt you've heard of this game, and I doubt any of you guys out there have. It's called Jungle Strike for the Sega Genesis. I'm telling you, I owned the Sega Genesis like as my only system.
I don't even know what game that is.
We'll get to the game. I just need to talk about, because I feel like people are going to wonder why I picked so many Sega Genesis games.
You did say that was like the only console you had.
It was the only console I had, and the games were cheap. I used to actually go to pawn stores, like in really shady pawn stores, and just like kind of go there with like $2 in my little, tube wallet. Like, I only have $2. Can I get that game for that? But Jungle Strike, let's get back to the game, is one of a trilogy of video games for the Sega Genesis. Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, Urban Strike. Each of them, most of the game happens in a certain place. So like Desert Strike, believe it or not, happens in a desert.
Okay.
Jungle Strike happens mainly in a jungle.
Okay.
Urban Strike, what do you think?
Urban City?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in urban cities.
Okay. So why this game? Why number 1 on your list?
It is number 1 for a number of reasons. I think the gameplay is actually still tight to this day, and they've never really made, or at least I've never found, a top-down shooter like this game that's kind of like it. It had an almost open world map where you'd go and you'd complete different missions.
Okay. That's cool.
That part was cool, and it also introduced me to one of my favorite things in video games to this day, is my very first Easter egg.
Nice. Awesome.
In the second level, you find a hovercraft, and you can basically like go around different places. You need to blow up different bases. I think you need to blow up a few battleships. I don't remember what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. But at a certain point in the story, if you go to the far left-hand side of the map, there's this little teeny island, and on the island are these NPCs, one with a blue shirt, one in a red shirt with a white hat. This was like the first Easter egg, and it was Skipper and Gilligan from Gilligan's Island.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
That game actually included those characters in it in some way.
And it feels like a rare Easter egg, because I've actually never seen anyone mention this one ever. So
maybe, honestly, it might have been just a small group of people, that only ever played this game to begin with. So if you actually know this game, please mention it in the comments. And like, if you know about this Easter egg, also comment on that, because I've never heard of this game in my entire life. I didn't even know it existed, let alone that there was a trilogy. So the fact that there was 3 full games made of this genre surprises me.
Yes.
But you know what? I honestly, Sega games was actually something I was very limited in playing.
You're right.
Because it was actually a console that my cousins had, and I never really was able to play, or own it, I should say, and be able to have that category of games like you had. You know, the only game I can really remember is Sonic and Taxi Cab for the Dreamcast.
Oh, Crazy
Taxi. Crazy, not Taxi Cab. Crazy Taxi. It's like, and I think there's a surfer game or something like that, 1080 snowboard or something like that, like a snowboard game, I think.
Oh, on the Dream. Well, I mean, you're in a different system.
Yeah. But, you know, it's not even the Genesis.
The Genesis was cartridge.
Cartridge, yeah. So, yeah, see? That's another example. So my list for Sega is so small that you're right. This could have been like everybody that owns a Sega out there, Genesis, was like, you've never played, what is it called?
Jungle Strike.
Jungle Strike?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, because I probably never had the console long enough to even own the game.
Right.
But yeah. Alright, so that's fair enough to be your number one. My number one game, since we're jumping to that next, has to be from the Zelda franchise, since I'm a huge Zelda nerd, as you know. Hence the Triforce up there. But has to be The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. That to me was, and I know it's controversial because everybody like that played Zelda is always going towards Ocarina of Time. And I get it, Ocarina of Time was great. But Majora's Mask, that was just a whole different game to me, man. There was something about having Link as your main character, but then having these masks that not only change you to the Deku Link, you're the Goron Link and the Zora Link, all, you know, characters or races that are within the Zelda game franchise. You get those masks, but then you also get like the other special masks, like the bunny hood, and you get the postman hat that you delivered mail. I thought that was just so fun to do, and you know, to me that was just like such a well put together game. And I know not many people might agree with it, but you know what? Majora's Mask for me, had the emotional story behind it. The hero's journey, you know, you're Link trying to you find yourself in this one location you've never been to before, Termina, that does not exist really in the Hyrule world. You don't really know where it is. It's all new to you, and you're trying to save the people from the impending doom of this moon coming down.
So, like Super Mario 64, this game is a sleeper horror game. Honestly, the endlessly ticking clock, the smiling moon just threatening to kill you at any moment, and the constant sense of anxiety that you're going to run out of time. I mean, it's like an anxiety simulator for me. I don't know how people can enjoy this game, never mind put in their top 5.
I mean, you just have to be crazy like me. But no, honestly, I thrived off that. I think the pressure of having to beat a dungeon really quick because you're on the 3rd day and you only have X amount of minutes, you know, to finish it. That to me was like, oh my gosh, I won't have enough time. And if you run out of time, you have to do it all over again. And that pressure was like, all right, I like this. And I didn't experience that in Ocarina of Time. There was no pressure. In Ocarina of Time, you could just roam around for ages. Like, Ganondorf is doing all this bad stuff, and here's Link playing, like, a cuckoo game. Like, didn't matter.
Right.
You know, here it's like, if you were stopping to play a mini game, you had to realize, you know, I got other stuff to do.
Right.
And there's only a small window where you actually have things to do. Because everything was clockwork, you know, no pun intended. So no matter what happened, you always at this time this happened, always at this time this happened. So you knew the time slots, and then you just played your game set upon that like those times.
I mean, look, I'm gonna not knock it. It's just not for me. I never liked Majora's Mask. Could not deal with going back and having to do the same things over and over again.
And I understand that. So at the end of the day, this is our separate top 5 list. You know, it's not. This isn't written down in stone as nobody else can have an opinion and, you know, knock your games out of this. You know, this is your personal top 5.
This couldn't be less definitive, honestly.
Especially with your Sega games. I'm sorry. Yeah. I've never heard of them, and I would never think other people will put it on their top 5. So I'm very curious to see if people do. Because if you know that these games that he's mentioned specifically, or even the games I've mentioned, make sure you comment. Because I really want to know that these games actually existed. Because if you didn't come with screenshots showing it, I would 100% doubt their existence.
I mean, that's fair. I even still have the cartridges to this day. So.
Well, I think that's our top 5 list, right?
Yeah.
You know, for now, we just want to thank you guys. You know, thank you so much for watching the video, for making it this far. We want to remind you to subscribe to the channel because we're going to be putting a bunch of stuff out. We're going to be doing stuff like this. We're going to have some anime stuff that we both enjoy. There are going to be debates too because, you know, we're going to have arguments and, you know, those are always fun. And then we're just going to have general talk because I think, you know, you guys probably like that type of things. And speaking of liking, make sure you like the video. That's number one, most important. Like the video. This way other people can see it. Share it if you like. And then leave a comment. We really want to know that, you know, you've heard of these games. And then we want to know what games make your top 5 list.
Let me know if any of my games make your top list, because I really want to know if I have any kindred spirits out there in the video gaming world.
I hope you do, my man, because I hope you do. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Our socials, you know, you can follow us on Instagram. Follow us to stay tuned with our lives, you know, things going on with us. You can follow Matt at
Mateo Kindly.
And you can follow me, Rich, at La Vida de Rich. And I'll leave them down here so you guys can see what that looks like. And yeah, thank you again for watching. We'll see you guys next time. See you. MaRicast out. Yeah.